What is up, friends? Let's talk about Netflix's brand new series, Tuca and Bertie. So spoilers for the entire first season lie ahead. And y'all, I seriously just love this show. It's goofy as hell, but so real and heartfelt, and it's unlike anything out there right now. The obvious thing that everyone's gonna want to do is compare it to BoJack Horseman, and there are a couple obvious reasons for that. One, both shows are about anthropomorphic animal people, and two, Tuca and Bertie's creator Lisa Hannawalt is the production designer for BoJack. While there are some awesome aspects that the two shows share, and I super understand the inclination to compare them, Tuca and Bertie is absolutely its own thing and completely stands on its own. It has its own vibe and tone that stand apart from BoJack, and I'm glad that the series don't feel too similar. One of my favorite things about the show is how it ventures through the surreal with its animation style. The world itself bobs and weaves to the music, it rarely obeys the laws of physics, and you'll often see words and logos pop up on screen to accentuate dialogue or punch up a joke. It uses its animation style in similar ways to Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. It knows it's a cartoon and isn't trying to be realistic, so you'll see crazy animation sequences and some really fun scene transition shots and unique art styles. The story is the perfect level of serialization. There's a very clear story that arcs throughout the season, but each episode stands on its own as well. The world is so weird and out there. It's an anthropomorphic animal world with barely any actual humans. Most of the characters we see are birds, as the main characters live in Bird Town, but there are plenty of other animal people as well, plus some plant people. Funny enough, there are actually animals too, though sometimes the lines between animals and animal people are blurred, like with this jaguar that Tuca adopts briefly. But the best part about the show is how it seamlessly blends this over-the-top and vibrant style with real, genuine character and relationship development. The heart of the show is undoubtedly Tuca and Bertie's friendship, but the show also does an amazing job showcasing their pasts and personal struggles through the ongoing events of the show. Speaking of which, let's start talking about those stories. The first episode is called The Sugar Bowl and does a really great job not only introducing us to our main characters, but showcasing the insane, out there types of stories that the show wants to tell. Tuca and Bertie had been roommates for years, but Tuca is now moving out so that Bertie's boyfriend Speckle can move in with her. Bertie lends out a bowl of sugar to Tuca that turns out to be Speckle's grandmother's ashes mixed with sugar, which, yeah, pretty damn weird already. Tuca lent out the bowl of sugar herself, which leads to the pair going on a wild goose chase across Birdtown to get it back. This leads them to Pastry Pete's bakery, and as an amateur baker herself, Bertie is in awe of his storefront and baked goods. Pastry Pete is known for his innovative combination of krillers and bundt cake, which he calls the Grunt. God. Tuca pushes Bertie into challenging Pete to a croissant bake-off to get the bowl of sugar back. She impresses Pete in the process, and he offers to train her as a chef, but not before Speckle's grandma sugar accidentally gets baked into a cake. Hilariously, the cake turns into Speckle's grandmother herself, and he is forced to eat her to help her to move on to the afterlife. This absolutely killed me, and God, what just an absolute absurd and hilarious development for the pilot of a series to showcase. It's really crazy, really sets the tone for the show. Just a bold, awesome move. I love it. This episode does a few things incredibly well. We get to know Tuca, Bertie, and Speckle as characters perfectly. We're introduced to the outrageous world the series is set in, and it establishes where our characters are at in their life journeys. Over the episode, we see Tuca come to terms with the fact that she won't be living with Bertie anymore, and we see how Tuca's influence helps Bertie pursue desires she otherwise would be too shy or anxious to pursue. Pilot episodes are really hard, and Tuca and Bertie absolutely nails it, so kudos to them for getting it right on the first try. Episode 2 is called The Promotion and shows us Bertie's actual job outside of her pastry ambitions, working as a data analyst at a magazine. We learn that Bertie is hoping to get an available promotion at the office for which she is easily the most qualified, but some of her own insecurities as well as the behavior of some belligerent coworkers prevent her from outright asking for it. The aforementioned belligerent coworker, Dirk, sexually harasses Bertie in the office, and one of her boobs up and leaves when Bertie doesn't call him out. This is another example of how the show combines real-world issues with really out-there concepts. The next day, Tuca gets a job at Bertie's office as a temp and helps push her into pursuing her goals more actively. Dirk gets called out, Bertie's ideas are heard loud and clear by her boss, and she ultimately asks for and receives the promotion she deserves. In the end, while Bertie accomplishes what she sets out to do, she realizes that maybe office life isn't what she actually wants in her life. Episode 3 is called The Deli Guy and is a little more Tuca-centric, but this is the first episode that really walks the line between deeply emotional and goofy hilarious. Tuca is crushing on a monkey who works at the local deli, and Bertie pushes her into going out with him. Their date is really fun, but it's quickly clear that Tuca is uncharacteristically get awkward and uncomfortable on their date. She makes some weird, rash decisions that continue to make the date more and more awkward. She opens up to Bertie about what made the date so difficult for her, and it ventures into some real and heartfelt discussions about Tuca. It's mentioned before this episode, but it's now clear that Tuca has been sober for 6 months, and a lot of her fun, impulsive success with men in the past was the outcome of her alcohol indulgence. She's struggling to know who she is and how to act without the assistance and freedom that alcohol can bring. It's a really great scene and was the first to make me realize how effectively this show is going to combine fun, crazy animated insanity with down-to-earth realistic human problems. Bertie's story in this ep is also hilarious, involves her sex life with Speckle needing some spice. There are some truly funny scenes as they try new things, and they watch a movie together called The Nests of Netherfield that absolutely killed me. The show has such a variety of parodies and types of humor, it always keeps me guessing. Sex Bugs is the 4th episode and revolves around Tuca having gotten a crabs-like STD called sex bugs, which are hilariously depicted as crazy partiers. Bertie plays hooky from work to help Tuca get some medical shampoos and ointments for her sex bugs, which Tuca misuses in the bathroom of the grocery store, leading to the sex bugs growing huge and running amok in the store. Did I mention how hilariously crazy this show is? We get a really fun musical sequence about how Bertie is totally losing her shit, and even though she's really angry at Tuca, Bertie steps up and helps her out of the sex bug jam by defending her in this weird grocery store court with the center of sex bug control. When Bertie steps up to the plate in a difficult situation, she realizes there's a lot more she can handle in the world. She grabs a pamphlet for a feminist group she was apprehensive about joining, she goes to Pastry Pete and gets an apprenticeship, and she even gives the presentation at work that she was really apprehensive about giving. I really enjoyed how the ending of this episode played out. This was a situation where Tuca was selfish and not understanding of Bertie's fears, but ultimately it helped Bertie pursue more of her goals and become more assertive. It shows how there's a bit of a rift in their friendship brewing, and that's leading to Bertie accomplishing more in her life. Episode 5 is called Plumage and sees Tuca visiting her aunt Tallulah, who also helps pay her bills and support her. Tuca wants Bertie to go with her, but she's too busy, so Speckle decides to go with her instead to check out the crazy architecture of her mansion. The Tuca and Speckle adventure is a truly fun team up, but the episode also reveals a ton of heartbreaking backstory for Tuca. This is Tuca's first visit to her aunt's since she quit drinking, and she doesn't want to tell her aunt that she's sober now. Speckle drinks a lot of Tuca's alcohol and gets really drunk while Tuca has to endure Tallulah's drunken insults. We learn that Tuca has a lot of siblings and that her mother died really young. Tallulah continues to verbally abuse Tuca and compare her to her mother, which is pretty tough to watch. Tuca stands up for herself and refuses her aunt's financial assistance before leaving her house and heading back to Birdtown. The backstory of Tuca's family is heartbreaking and provides a lot of insight into her character, and the fact that she stood up for herself was a big character moment while also setting up some future struggles without that financial assistance. Bertie had a huge day as well, but it culminates in her apprenticeship with Pastry Pete, which leads to a really uncomfortable interaction where he forces her to smell some of his simmering pastry ingredients in an aggressive way. Bertie is clearly uncomfortable by this exchange, but it also turns her on as seen in a pretty wild final scene for the episode. The next episode is called The Open House and shows Bertie, Speckle, and Tuca go through some open houses. After a day of open houses, Bertie and Speckle seriously consider buying a house together. They actually start to go through the process to put in offers on houses, which leads to Bertie having a bit of a nervous breakdown. She ignores Speckle for a lot of the episode during the breakdown, which leads to them losing out on the house. Tuca has a separate breakdown when she realizes that Bertie and Speckle want to move away from their apartment building, which leads to her buying a huge jaguar as a pet and then trying to buy a house with that jaguar. God, what the hell? I love this show. The jaguar has yet another breakdown and mauls a food delivery man before Speckle is able to calm the jaguar down. This episode shows Tuca, Bertie, and Speckle's struggles incredibly well. Tuca continues to fear losing Bertie from her life, while Bertie fears the type of commitment that home ownership would bring her relationship. Bertie says sometimes making a big decision feels like closing a door, and this is something I think we can all relate to sometimes. Episode 7 is called Yeast Week and sees Bertie's first major opportunity as a pastry chef. Bertie has this awesome anime move when making Pete's newest pastry, and I love the animation of that action. It's just fun anime stuff. Tuca has a genuine medical issue this episode, but refuses to get it looked at since she no longer has her aunt's support money. She's using a program called Virtual Realities to have virtual sex with clients and make a living. While she's working with a horse client, her medical issue comes to a head, and the client drives 7 hours to help take her to the hospital. This little horse guy, he's a real sweet boy. Bertie's experience at Yeast Week is incredibly positive as she pulls off her pastry anime move on a huge stage with Pastry Pete. He offers to take her to a huge industry after party, but she ends up turning him down when she finds out Tuca needs surgery and is in the hospital. We see Tuca's major fears of doctors and surgery stems from the fact that her mother was in a car accident and died during the subsequent surgery, giving us more heartbreaking backstory. We also see that the last time Bertie saw Tuca in the hospital was in college when she had alcohol poisoning and had to get her stomach pumped. Tuca has an egg surgically removed from her stomach and is okay afterwards, but the situation leads to a falling out between Tuca and Bertie. The season definitely seemed to be leading to this point, and the way it all came to a head was really effective. Tuca and Bertie love each other so much, but they've been through so much together, it's hard not to gather bad baggage in a friendship like that. Bertie resents Tuca for her neediness and how her impulsiveness has negatively affected her life. They have a meaningful argument with some really important growth, but it leads to them taking a friendship break for a while. Episode 8 is called The New Bird and takes place months after the previous episode, so Tuca and Bertie haven't been in each other's lives for a while now. It shows a young idealistic bird named Dakota move to Birdtown and get an apprenticeship at Pastry Pete's bakery. She and Bertie become fast friends when they discover how much they have in common. Tuca has been out partying every night, but she also has maintained her sobriety the whole time, which was a big relief for me. I was worried that the falling out with Bertie would lead her back to the bottle, and while she definitely struggled, she never drank. Tuca continues to have issues with losing Bertie, and any reminder about that sends her spiraling. Instead, Tuca hangs with her neighbor Draca, while also worrying about how Bertie would be judging her actions. Draca recommends Tuca check out this weird holistic egg thing where a bunch of hippy-dippy folks go to heal, and she sort of accidentally turns the entire place into a cult. With her new friend Dakota's influence, Bertie decides to put her own creation on the menu of the pastry shop, and it's a huge success. Of course, Pastry Pete swoops in to take credit later. Tuca has a trippy religious experience with Draca where she faces her fears of Bertie's judgment, but also realizes how supportive Bertie was as well. This sequence has some incredibly unique clay-like animation. I was really into it. Back at Pete's pastry shop, Pete puts Dakota through that same aggressive and uncomfortable forced smelling incident that Bertie went through earlier in the season, but this time Dakota fights back and quits. She gets mad when she realizes he did the same thing to Bertie, and that Bertie didn't warn Dakota about it. This part of the series does such an amazing job portraying the abuse that can come with power dynamics. This is something we hear a lot about these days, and it's important for people to recognize when an imbalance of power can lead to people being willing to take abuse. Bertie took the abuse that Pastry Pete forced upon her because he was in a position of power and held opportunity over her head. If he didn't have the ability to help propel her career, she wouldn't have taken that abuse, and seeing Dakota be strong enough to fight back against that abuse made her feel regret and shame. It's so important to know how these types of power dynamics can affect our relationships in the world, in any given relationship we have. Instead of going home, Bertie just drives out into the night before fate brings her across Tuca, who gets in the car and goes with her. Episode 9 is called The Jelly Lakes and sees Tuca and Bertie head to a place called, you guessed it, the Jelly Lakes. Bertie's family has a cabin here, but she seems really apprehensive about going there. They run into her old swimming coach, Coach Maple, and spend the next couple days with her and her wife, Pat. We eventually learn the heartbreaking story behind Bertie's apprehension about coming to the Jelly Lakes. When she was 12 years old, Bertie was abused by a lifeguard on Peanut Island, and this led to her decision to stop swimming forever. She reveals this to Tuca, which seems to be the first time she's ever told anyone about it, and it leads to an incredible bonding moment between the two of them. Bertie finds the strength to conquer her fears, and she swims all the way to Peanut Island herself the following day. The final episode of the season sees Tuca and Bertie return home from the Jelly Lakes in their version of Christmas time, Molting season. Speckle is furious at Bertie for leaving town for days without any contact, and he reveals that he bought himself a house while she was gone. Bertie struggles to deal with some of her old demons led to a real rift in her relationship with Speckle, and Speckle has a really entertaining breakdown. After some soul searching, Bertie realizes how much she loves Speckle and lets him know, but the damage isn't fixed so easily, and they have a lot of work to do after what happened, and he lets her know that. The rest of the episode shows Bertie stand up to Pastry Pete, quitting her job and vowing to start her own pastry shop by the end of the day. With Tuca's help, she actually makes it happen despite numerous false starts. They make a ton of delicious pastries and deliver them around Birdtown just in time for the holidays. The delivery scenes take us through a nice little recap of the show's inaugural season, as most of the show's characters from all 10 episodes can be seen eating the new pastries. Tuca calls her sister and reaches out to her family and decides that she wants her family to be in her life, and thus ends an incredibly impressive first season of Tuca and Bertie. This series showcased such an amazing range of emotional nuance in an outrageously fun package. It's exactly what I want out of an adult comedy these days, and I love what Lisa Hanawalt is doing with the genre. The performances from the leads, Ali Wong and Tiffany Haddish, are absolutely incredible. They're both just so funny and relatable. Not to mention Steven Yeun as Speckle, who is also just hysterical. There are so many tiny little fun interstitial bits and comedy segments I didn't even get to touch on, but the show just has so much to offer on so many levels. It's beautifully and uniquely animated, heartfelt and emotional, silly and vulgar, and just so damn funny. I would be truly surprised if the show wasn't picked up for a second season. With BoJack Horseman's massive success, Netflix has a great relationship with the Tornante company, and I'm sure they want to maintain that goodwill. What I'd like to see most out of season 2 is a little bit of an expansion on the world built in season 1. We spent most of the season in Birdtown, save for a couple episodes, but a few other cities are mentioned as well, including Frogtown and Horseville, implying that there are other locations that primarily feature specific types of animal people. I would love to see them showcase some of these locations in the next season. I'm also eager to meet more of Tuca's family in the next season and see how Bertie and Speckle's relationship is repaired after the damage from season 1. Bertie's pastry business is another storyline I'm eager to see continued, but most importantly, I want the show to continue what it does best, and that is highlight a beautiful friendship between two very different people. Crazy as it sounds, I think Tuca and Bertie's friendship is the heart of Tuca and Bertie. Who would have thought? And the way that they help each other cope with their struggles, insecurities, and past is easily the highlight of the series. I can't wait to see what they have in store. Oh, and also, if you, like me, always jumped right to the next episode when the credits hit, I have really good news. There's a tiny little post-credit tag at the end of every single episode that I missed in my first watch, so be sure to go back and check those out. It's after the credits. And that's where I want to pass it on to you folks. How did you like Tuca and Bertie's first season? What do you want to see in season 2? Please let me know below in the comments. Now, I know a lot of you have been waiting for my BoJack season 3 review for a while now, and rest assured, it's definitely on my to-do list, but I think I'm gonna wait until we're a little closer to the release of season 6. So keep an eye out for that in the fall. I have a lot of other BoJack video ideas that I'll release around then as well, leading up to the new season. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this Tuca and Bertie review. If you like my stuff, make sure to check out more videos, hit subscribe, comment, you know the drill. And alright, I will catch you guys later. Peace.
Johnny! Two cellos!